Hello and welcome to another video from Midas Touch Toys, Games, Collectibles. And today we are looking at something that's quite special and quite old. We're looking at the 1983 release by World Distributors from their series of TV tie-in annuals. And this particular annual we are looking at today is the 1983 K-9 annual. Now, obviously, as you know, K-9 featured in Doctor Who, and he was a companion of the Fourth Doctor for a few years back in the 1970s. Yeah, 1970s, just before the 80s, I think. He was invented by Professor Marinus, which he appeared in one of the TV episodes, and K-9 was his robotic computer, which at the end of the episode he gave it to the Doctor, and K-9 then went on to be a companion of the Fourth Doctor. And then in the spin-off, K-9 and Company, the Doctor had actually left a version of K-9 with Sarah Jane Smith's aunt, so that when Sarah Jane Smith actually went to her aunt's house, this box was discovered in the attic with a note saying to Sarah Jane from the Doctor, and K-9 was actually inside there, and she opened it up and discovered K-9, and K-9 then became her property. And this book then is based on that TV spin-off episode, K-9 and Company, A Girl's Best Friend, which was basically, it was a Christmas special that was aired on Christmas Day, I think it was, 1981, and starred Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith and John Leeson as the voice of K-9. Okay, anyway, I've digressed. Let's get on to this annual. So this is the annual in front of us, and it says BBC TV K-9 annual 1983. You've got a big image there of K-9 as he appeared on a beach. I think that was Brighton Beach. And then you've got an image of the house and the I'll say druids, but they're not exact druids, the worshippers that appeared in the TV episode K-9 and Company, the spin-off episode K-9 and Company. Okay, you've got the World Distributors logo at the bottom there. So that's the front of the annual. Let's just turn it over and see what we've got on the back. Okay, so on the back we've got a nice image there of K-9 sitting on some rocks, a nice artwork image that is. And it says BBC TV K-9. If you enjoyed this annual, why not look out for our Doctor Who annual? It's on sale now. And that's World Distributors logo and the SBN number 7235 66615. Okay, that's the back of the annual. Let's just have a very quick look at the spline. And it says BBC K-9 annual 1983, and it says World and the logo there. And you can see that this book is in absolutely mint condition, and I'll tell you why in a little bit later. Okay, without further ado then, let's open the annual up and have a look inside. Okay, so I've opened the annual, and as you can see, it's absolutely mint inside here. This page is a little bit stuck to the front there. I'm not going to put it and separate it. It's obviously from new. The glue had just gone over and it stuck the page a little bit closer to the front cover as it should have done, but we'll ignore that for now. So you've got the copyright information at the bottom here and the World Distributors logo. You've got the same image of K-9 as he appeared on the back cover, and you've got Sarah Jane Smith's nephew there, one of the worshippers, as an image of Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith there from the TV episode, and an image of K-9 from the same episode. You've also got the original purchase price there, if you can just see that, of £2.50 on the bottom corner. A lot of these annuals at the time, they put the price on the inside so that you could snip it off if you was giving it away as a gift. K-9 at the top there, and it says the contents: Power Stone, the Shroud of Azarath, Hound of Hell, the Monster of Loch Crug, Horror Hotel, the Curse of Cambo Allah. And the features include introducing K-9, meet Sarah Jane Smith, can you follow instructions, the shape of TV to come, Professor Rubik's Cube, talking of technology, K-9's quiz, what is the secret of the standing stones, myth or monster, UFO, is this the answer, Once upon a time, there was a robot and ghostly goings on. Okay, that's the content. So let's move over. Introducing K-9, and that gives you a little bit of a brief history of K-9. It says K-9 is no ordinary canine. To give him his precise due, he is a real-time data analyzer robot who just happens to be in the shape of a mechanical dog. With his original master, the Time Lord Doctor Who, K-9 has already seen action and adventure aplenty, and he's analysed himself and the Doctor out of many a tricky corner. K-9's space travelling days are behind him now, but that doesn't mean he's out of action. Quite the opposite, in fact. K-9 has been assigned to assist investigate journalist Sarah Jane Smith in the course of her dramatic exposures and startling stories, and he's already proven to be just the kind of helpmate every investigative journalist needs. He doesn't get fluttered. That was never in any of the memory programs, and he possesses all the loyalty and obedience of the more familiar four-footed friends. As for intelligence, well, K-9 would be a candidate for Mensa if they had any openings for metal members. He has an IQ of over 300 and can analyse a problem with devastating accuracy in less than 2 flicks of a dog's tail, so to speak. It says K-9 has a blaster in his mouth, which extends to stun any adversary, and it can even kill if the danger is sufficiently deadly. He can move his head up and down in order to direct the blaster, which shoots off a powerful red ray. Not to be confused with the blaster, K-9 also has a probe, which extends from his head to allow him to analyse objects which would otherwise be just out of his range. K-9 has been programmed to speak his replies to questions, but for occasions when he is left alone to conduct detailed analysis, he has always been equipped with a ticker tape facility which discharges from his mouth. He is fitted with tracks to facilitate movement on rough ground, and one other feature of note is his tail, which moves up and down and from side to side. This is an indicator of K-9's opinions on various matters, and it does have a certain parallel among his more ordinary cousins. And it says, footnote, just to keep the record straight, the K-9 who helped Sarah Jane Smith is actually Mark III of the model. Mark I was left on the planet Gallifrey with the Doctor's assistant Leela, and Mark II was left in E-space with Romana. There we go. And this is Mark III with Sarah Jane Smith. And so we've got Meet Sarah Jane Smith, and that's all information on Sarah again, and her, I believe that's her nephew. And then we're on the first story, which is called Power Stone, which was an original story that features Sarah Jane Smith and her aunt, and K-9, of course, and she goes off to do some investigation and sorts out mysteries and gangs, and gets them all sorted with her aunt Lavender, her nephew Brendan, and the K-9. There we are. Anyway, can you follow instructions? That's just something for you to do. And then Shape of TV to Come. That's all about television of the future. Remember, this is 1983, so this is 41 years ago. So there we are. And Professor Rubik's Cube. This is when the Rubik's Cube had really got into its own. And you can see there's a few stars of the time. Emily Hughes and Andy Gray, who were attempting to do the Rubik's Cube and got absolutely nowhere. And then we go on to the Shroud of Azarath, and this is again, it's another story, full story with monocolor illustrations, artwork illustrations, obviously, with K-9 and Sarah Jane Smith. So this whole book really is a spin-off of K-9 and Company, but it is actually called the K-9 Annual, obviously. Talking of technology, they're all about space travel, and robots and fusion and fission. And then we come on to the next story, which is another full story with monocolor images of Sarah Jane, nephew, and K-9 again, and they're on another investigated journey by the looks of things. And then we were on to K-9's quiz. So the very first question, it was discovered on 13th of March 1781 by William Herschel, who at first believed it to be a comet. For some time it was known variously as Hypercronus, the Georgian planet, in honour of Herschel's patron King George III, or simply Herschel. In 1850 it was given the name by which we know it today. What is the name of that planet? And that's Uranus. Okay, so that's the K-9's quiz for you to work out. What is the secret of the standing stones? And that's, by the looks of things, that's all about Stonehenge and how the stones got there and why they're there and so on. And then we go on to the next story again, which is another investigative story with K-9 and Sarah Jane. And it's called The Monsters of Loch Craig. And it's a full story with colour illustrations, full colour illustrations, artwork illustrations, of course. And there we go. There's Sarah Jane and K-9 in a boat rowing across the ocean or a river or whatever it is. And then we come on to another story, which is Myth or Monster. And again, I presume that's all about the Loch Ness Monster. And it's not a story, actually. It's yes, it is a story. It's a very, very short story, in actual fact. And then UFO, is this the answer? And that's information on the stream of UFOs that was being reported in those days. Once upon a time, there was a robot. And that's probably all about robotics in the movies. And then we're on to another story featuring K-9 and Sarah, Horror Hotel. And again, this is a well, it's got colour. First cut image is colour. After that, it goes to monocolour, and it's a full story again. Original story again for this particular annual. And then The Curse of Cambo Allah, which I'm assuming is another adventure for Sarah and K-9. And again, it's a full story with monocolour illustrations. And that brings us to Ghostly Goings On, which is information about ghosts. Do you believe in ghosts? The answer to that question often depends on whether you've had any spooky experiences yourself. Certainly the people involved in these strange events would answer a definite yes. So it appears to be actual events. And that brings us to the end of the annual. That is the last page, and that brings us to a close. So, how well did these annuals do? Well, I think in the early 80s to mid 80s, annuals were beginning to slow down a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was later than that the annuals started to slow down. Yeah, I think perhaps it was really in the 90s that it slowed down. So the 80s, it was still really quite a big thing. Video recorders was just about becoming household equipment. So you could start recording your television programs, or you could go to the video store and get some films. So it's just becoming into its popularity, which it peaked in the 90s. But certainly back in the early 80s, it was just beginning. So if your television programs were on TV, you were able to record them if you were lucky enough to have a video recorder. But back in the early 80s, they were incredibly expensive. But they had just coming into their own. So I think the annuals were beginning to slow down a little bit. I mean, the annuals have been so popular and were staple diet for many, many years. And I think as the technology moved on, they started to become less and less of a staple diet, if you like. I think they were, in the early 80s, from what I can remember, they were just beginning to taper off a little bit. They were still very, very hugely popular, I should say. Don't get me wrong, they were still massively popular. But I don't think they were quite as popular as they were in the previous decades. But popular they were, and as usual, they were released towards the end of the year, so they were in time for the Christmas rush, because every kid woke up with some annuals in their Christmas stockings or the Christmas sacks on Christmas morning. And that was the whole idea behind the annuals being released late in the year, so they were there for Christmas. And they were, this particular one was the 1983 one, so this was released late in 82. It would have been September, October, November time. So it was there for the Christmas rush and for the 1983 Christmas. Bearing in mind also that it was only the previous Christmas, Christmas 1981, when the K-9 and Company, A Girl's Best Friend television show, was aired on Christmas. So this is only a year later when this annual was released for the upcoming Christmas and New Year. So there we have it. This particular annual also was a shop find, which is why it is in practically immaculate condition. If you went into a shop back in 1982 to buy this annual for your kids or for yourself or whoever, this condition of annual is exactly how you would have bought it back then. It was one of the items that we bought from a closed down shop that didn't recover through the COVID pandemic, and there was an awful lot of annuals that were discovered in the back storeroom that never sold, and they once the year had gone, they would discount them. If they didn't sell, they'd put them in the back storeroom, and there must have been 20 or 30, maybe even more than that, 40 or 50 maybe, annuals that we secured when we bought out all the stock, and this particular one was amongst those annuals. Okay, so yes, the annual done exceptionally well, and yes, it was very popular again at the time. Sadly, the TV series K-9 and Company never actually went ahead, so only that pilot episode was produced, and for a series it wasn't given the green light. Of course, K-9 did finally come back to television after the Doctor Who episode School Reunion, as did Sarah Jane, and Sarah Jane then went on to have her own television series, which was called The Sarah Jane Adventures. Anyway, that's another story. Okay, so do these annuals come up on the platforms now? Yes, they do. They do appear on the platforms, but trying to find one in this condition is going to be very, very difficult on any platform. They do pop up from time to time, not as often as some of the other annuals do, but they do still come up from time to time. And again, when you buy on platforms, I say it over and over again, be very careful at what you think you're ordering, because someone's definition of very good could be somebody else's definition of acceptable. So just be very, very cautious of what you buy, and have a good look at the pictures of the actual item you are ordering, so you're not disappointed when it arrives. Or alternatively, we at Midas Touch, we managed to find a few of these annuals, as we say, from that stock recovery, and these annuals are currently available to purchase on the Midas Touch website, which you can get to quite simply by clicking the link below. It'll take you straight to the website, where you'll be able to find this and many other vintage annuals, and many other vintage toys, games and collectibles. Come to that, there's over 10,000 products currently available on the website for you to view and purchase at your leisure. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because we're uploading videos for every new item that goes into the website. There will be something for everybody, and I am absolutely positive that this is something you won't want to miss, because we literally have thousands and thousands of new products which we're shooting videos for and uploading on a daily basis. So if there is something in particular you're looking for, something old that you've never been able to find, something quirky you might want to buy for a friend, or perhaps just something from your childhood that you'd like to own again to help you recuperate those long lost childhood memories, well, stay tuned, keep watching, because you never know, the next item we upload could be that item you've been looking for. Okay, that is it for me on this particular item. I do hope you've enjoyed reviewing this very old and superb annual with me. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next video. Thanks again.